Welcome and bienvenidos to our new program called Next Generation, highlighting the many creative journeys of next generation leaders. In this series, I will bring you the stories of young leaders in science, literature, medicine, education, and business. Those who have chosen to reach further, travel farther, innovate, and take the risks often necessary to make a difference in their own lives, in those of their families, their communities, and someday in the world. My name is Julieta Garcia. For over 22 years, I had the great privilege of serving as president of the University of Texas at Brownsville. Through that work, I came to know the stories of many of our students that overcame great obstacles to attend college and through great sacrifice of their own and of their families, make it through. Getting to know their stories was always a great inspiration to me. So I thought I'd chase some of them down, interview them, and let you hear in their own words what they're up to now, what their challenges were, and what they hope to accomplish in the future. I promise you will be as inspired, amazed, and humbled by their accomplishments as I have been. Now let's get started. I have the great privilege today of interviewing Victoria Rodriguez. Victoria Rodriguez grew up in Brownsville, came to the university, and, well, she's going to tell you her story, but the end of the story that we're going to be talking about is what just happened with her choir when they competed in the UIL competition. But that's a long way toward the end here. So we're going to start out with Victoria Rodriguez as a student herself at Pace High School. Hello, Victoria. Glad to have you.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It's wonderful to have you here. So you grew up here in Brownsville, right. Went to Pace High School, and did you always know you wanted to be in music? Was that what you started out doing?
I liked choir from 5th grade on. It's pretty much what I did through school. I didn't plan to do choir or music as a major. I was going to be an English teacher. But I got a little burnt out being in advanced placement English, so I ended up switching to music. It was my bigger passion, and I really enjoyed that, and that's how I got into it for college.
So when you were at Pace, you were in the choir there? Or
I was.
Yes. And so often we're launched to the next adventure by a teacher or by a choir director. Was there someone at Pace that kind of inspired you to go to the next level?
Yes, my choir director there was Mr. Lenz, and we had a struggling program there, but he was always such a supportive teacher and director, and it wasn't about necessarily the contest or competition, but just us in being inspired and wanting to work and sing every day.
And being part of a group that
Right.
was all moving in that direction, I imagine. So then you decided to come to UT Brownsville. Why UT Brownsville?
I love that it was a big university, not just a community college, but it was both, and it was in my hometown. You know, I got to still have the luxuries of home and the luxury of a university and get a real university degree. I love where we are. I love the culture of the school. I was also, I think because it's such like a mid-sized university, there was more chance to be an individual, not in these masses of where it almost feels like you're being weeded out, especially out of music programs, which can be quite competitive. And ours was just so inclusive and supportive and wanting us to be successful.
So we, UT Brownsville, Texas Southwest College at the time, UTBTSC, now UTRGV, we're growing up to, had a very strong music program, very proud of that program. And one of the people that you studied under was Carol Sachs, is that right?
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I auditioned actually with her, I believe, for a scholarship, and I did receive a scholarship. But she was just such a fantastic vocal professor. I had a lot of anxieties coming in. Auditions are not my thing. I love to teach and I love to perform, but competition is not me. And she saw past that, and she worked with me because she knew I had that talent to get where I needed to be. And she knew that performance wasn't the only way to be a musician. She knew that I wanted to be an educator, and I had the right tools with her to become that.
So somehow from that you were propelled to Italy. What happened? How did you get to Italy with a chorale?
So I auditioned for the master chorale that was under Diane Brumley at the time. And I got in, which was awesome as a freshman. And we just worked so hard.
As a freshman?
That's
extraordinary, yeah.
We just, there was just such a standard of excellence being in her ensemble. And actually now I still sing in the Diane Brumley chorale, which is in our alumni choir. So we still have that same standard of excellence and that same camaraderie. But she was just all about not being just the Valley, not letting people think, oh, those are Valley people, or those are South Texas people, or Little Mexico, as a lot of people like to call Brownsville, and showing us as elite and showing us as superior and that standard of excellence that can go across oceans, and sing at the Vatican and sing in different chapels. And that's how we got there. She just didn't let anybody tell her that we were small town.
So starting out at Pace, going to UT Brownsville, and then getting catapulted over to perform at the Vatican, and then also at different churches throughout Italy. You talked about one particular performance at the Church of Assisi, I think.
Yes.
Tell us about the song that you all sang.
So one of the pieces in our program then that we've done it other times was called This Is My Father's World. And it's just a beautiful setting of lyrics, talking about that experience with the Lord and all that. And even if you don't believe the poetry itself is beautiful. And there was just this moment in that church, which was, it was a small village type church. It wasn't the Vatican, but there was just some, I don't know, maybe just the Spirit moved in us that day. And it was just this beautiful moment of just, even after we were done, that it took a second to come back from, and there was something unforgettable. And at the time smartphones were not as big of a thing, because that was about I guess almost 10 years ago. So really it's just what you can remember. There was no really recording of it or any of that. It was just that moment that we got to live through together.
I have been in the audience when Diane's chorale performed something like that. I remember her doing Danny Boy at a Board of Trustees meeting, and I thought, oh, this is going to be tough. We're in just a regular room here. The acoustics are not great. How is she going to move this audience? She had the board in tears by the time they finished with that song, and she captivates with her own, maybe spirituality is a word that...
She definitely does, and I think anybody who's been under her knows that she just is the biggest spirit and personality, and she just pushes us to almost breaking points, but she knows that we can take it, and she knows that she can get us there further. And I think that helped shape a lot of us into what we expect of now our students as music educators. And sometimes we have to remember, well, we were college kids. We can't be that crazy. But, we try, and we still try to, I guess, internalize that and bring it to our kids now.
Very high standard. I remember you all walked in unison and carefully, and it was all very choreographed.
Yes.
And all the way until the very end when you walked off, that was done. So that discipline, I've heard from many students, applies not only in music, but in their lives or in the study of other things.
Absolutely. I think discipline for yourself and for any job or performance or interaction is just absolutely vital. And it's not easy. It's so easy to not be on time, do mediocre work, because that's easy. It's lazy sometimes, but we have to just rise to the occasion on the daily. Now, do we do it all day, every day? We try, but we're only people. I'm only a person. I know all day, every day I try to be the best that I can be, but there are days when the best that you can be is maybe 80%, but that's all you can do.
So now you finish at UT Brownsville. You have this wonderful experience, both with a professor like Carol and also going to Italy and getting to play in these venues all over the world. And now it's time for you to leave this wonderful little campus and test yourself out in the world of music education. So you started out in McAllen, is that right? McAllen ISD?
My first year was at a middle school in McAllen ISD. That was a hard year. I took on a position as a head director, and they say you never get your first year teaching back, and I don't want it back. But I learned so many things there, and I think the biggest thing, and maybe like a word of advice for future graduates, is that a job is just a job. And if it's not the right fit, although it might be scary to leave something that, is supposed to be your livelihood, if it's not right, it's not right. And that job, although I loved my students, the environment wasn't the right one for me. That decision came up to stay or leave, and I decided it wasn't right for me. And I wasn't even sure what I was going to do. But it was important for me as an educator to do what was right for me. Because if you're not mentally sound in your job or happy there, your work for your students won't be as good as it can be. So I did leave that position, and I thought, well, maybe I'll go back to school or I'll get a master's, something else. But I ended up applying to Brownsville ISD, coming back home. And just by the right person didn't take a certain job, and I got to have that job. So I became an assistant at Vela Middle School with a friend of mine named Ginger Wheelock, also a graduate from UTB.
Oh, yeah. She used to sing for us at commencement.
And then I replaced her as the
and
commencement
then
singer.
Did. There you go.
So I got to work with her. And my first year with her, I consider my real first year, because I got to learn and in a really supportive environment. And we spent 3 years together there. And it was just fantastic. And I really feel that made me fall in love with teaching and not doubt myself as an educator. Because when I left my first position, I thought, oh my gosh, have I failed? Maybe this was the wrong. What did I do for 5 years getting this degree? But it just wasn't the right place. And so when I found the right place, I knew this is what I meant to do. I just had to find the right fit to do it in.
So once you get comfortable and you find the right fit, now you move again.
I did.
Okay, so what happened, and why was that the right decision at the time?
I felt that I had accomplished the things I wanted to in Brownsville ISD, and I'd also never lived outside of Brownsville ISD. When I worked in McAllen, I commuted every day. And so I thought, I want to move somewhere, and I really love the Houston area, which is where Fort Bend ISD is. And my best friend lives over there. I have family there, and I would visit. So I thought, well, I'll apply and see what happens. And I got an interview, and I got the position, and there it was. I was moving, and I whirlwind moved, and then got to experience the wonder that was Hurricane Harvey and all those fantastic things. And
sure.
So new job, new place, new weather experience is where I'm at right now.
So you were at Fort Bend ISD, and that's in Sugar Land, is that right?
Right. So the main part of that district is in Sugar Land. The campus I work at is in actual Houston, but it's really on the cusp of Houston and between those places.
It all blurs, doesn't
it?
You never know when you're out of one and into another. Now, this is a very large school district, as I understand it. It's the seventh largest in Texas with over 74,000 students. So you weren't going to a small little place at all. And it's also one of the fastest growing counties in the nation. But of all the things that's most impressive about it, it is one of the most diverse. Yes. And I thought this was interesting. You all have in your school district at Fort Bend ISD 90 different languages and dialects among the students. 90. That's a lot of dialects and languages. Tell us a little bit about that diversity.
So that diversity, it's a big change because here, I'm predominantly Hispanic, and if it's not English, it's Spanish. And over there, it's so different. And it's exciting because you get to see kids learning in these environments that I didn't learn in. I was in a place where everyone pretty much looked like me or spoke like me, had the family I had pretty similar. And so it's like an awakening almost, but I like the idea of that and how that can be. My campus is not as culturally diverse as some parts of the district, but it's still so different from here.
So you have Asian students, about 26% are in this school district, and Black students and Latino students and white students.
Right.
And then a few others kind of all thrown in too. So your school then apparently falls into the kind of the rubric of the vision of Fort Bend ISD is wanting to be one of the premier districts for fine arts in the nation. And that's like fantastic, right? For a music,
absolutely,
it must be. So that means that there's a lot of emphasis on the arts.
There is. They want this culture of fine arts and performance and visual arts to be the forefront of their campus because, academics are fantastic. And I think first and foremost, you need to be educated. But you also need that diversity in yourself, being well-rounded, that experience of that experience of giving something of yourself that isn't for necessarily a grade. Of course, a lot of our classes are for grades, but still those performances aren't about, did I get 100? Did I do this? And they see that and the difference that it makes in students' lives. Music education and art education, all those things are so big for brain development, and they help with, dyslexia. Kids who are not native English speakers, they have a place where that's not the first thing they have to deal with. And that's, I think, extremely beautiful and important for them and for me as well, watching students who come in, shy or afraid or having never done these things, and they find a confidence in themselves or a success in themselves. And the same goes for those kids who are quiet, but they make beautiful sculptures or beautiful drawings, or those kids who maybe they're those kids you say, oh, that kid's a lot, he's too much, but theater's their place, and or singing's their place, or playing an instrument's their place. And it gives that ability for kids to have a home somewhere in their campus.
That's an amazing opportunity for you then to be able to be in a school district that decides they're going to be one of the best in the nation. And so the bar is very high, I would imagine, then for teachers in the arts, performing arts especially. So now you get in a position and you are the choir director for middle school.
I am the head choir director at my middle school. Okay. I have an assistant, and we have about 185 students in our choir program.
It's a large number of students.
That is a large number of students, and it's a fantastic thing. It's the bigger amount of kids you have, the more ability you have to have a bigger budget for them, do more things with them, and it gives confidence to those kids being in large ensembles, things like that. That's exciting.
So your choir, then, the choir program that you were assigned as part of your responsibility had been kind of dormant for a while. Is that right?
Yes. It had dissolved for a few years and reopened 2 years ago under another director, and it's kind of been building back up. And this year, we've really gone in and just taken it by the reins and trying to steer it in the right direction of success. And we work hard every day to get them there, and performance, and it's little things that, because these kids haven't known the success that they could have, and so they've started to just now see the light of where they can go in the program.
So, they say, they had the question in music and in the performing arts is, how do you get to Carnegie Hall or Carnegie Hall? And the response is
practice.
Practice. So you now had to practice these kids to get ready for competition, and you had boys and girls in the choirs. Tell us a little bit about the sight reading, for example, that you had to practice for competition.
So our big competition that we do is UIL Concert and Sight Reading Contest, and so your ensemble goes and performs, and they also go into a separate choir room for sight reading, and they're handed a piece of music that's basically written for this competition for the entire state of Texas that they've never seen before, you've never seen before. Now, there's going to be certain things to expect because there's a certain form that we've practiced and all that, but it's preparing them to be able to open up that music and read it and sing it. And there's a lot of rules on how to do it and the study time, and then you can sing, but when you're singing, I can't talk, and it's just really complicated. And so we have to work every day to get them there, starting with small 4-measure exercises, building every day to get to the 24, 28 that you're going to read that day for the first time ever.
And so now you're there, and, well, no, before you left, I understand it, about half of the boys' choir decided to drop out the week before you left. Is that right?
Right. So we have what's called pre-UIL, so we get to do a practice, like a mock competition. And the morning of that, what our boys' choir that should have had 14 turned into 8. And, it was different things. Some of their parents just didn't want them to go, or they just didn't want to. They didn't bring uniforms, and and I said, it's okay, we can get you one. No, we don't want to go. Well, okay. So our 8 boys went, and it was the first time, I think, in maybe 12 or 15 years, a boys' choir had gone to pre-UIL, and they did well at that competition. Of course, they were a little surprised because they didn't have everyone they thought they would, and my assistant took them, and he really led them to his best ability to be successful and believed in them that entire time. And our head director went and supported them from the high school. So that was wonderful that they could be there. And then they went to UIL and they made vast improvements, just fantastic improvements. They didn't get a trophy, but for their circumstances, we were extremely happy and proud of what they had done.
Absolutely. So finally, it was the day of the competition. And tell us about the sweepstakes.
The sweepstakes. So for UIL, the best that you can get is a sweepstakes. So that's having a superior rating in both your concert and sight reading portion. There are 3 judges per portion. So you have to average a 1. So you call it a 1 on stage and on sight reading. And my JV girls, which was all 7th grade girls, they've never done it before because it's a 7th and 8th grade competition. So we went in, and they sang their stage beautifully, and I wasn't concerned with their concert. I knew that it would be fine because they'd been doing so well throughout the year. And they went into sight reading, and they went for the gold, And it was funny because the day before in class, their sight reading was a disaster to where I was like, I think I need to go light a candle for the Virgin. I'm not sure because I'm a little terrified. It's okay. But they went in there, and they left it there. They left it all there. They peaked at this competition, and I went upstairs to the contest office to receive my scores, and when I saw what they had achieved, I cried, which anyone who knows me, I'm a bit of a crier, but I'd never cried at UIL before, and it was just because it was such a painstaking year of them fighting a new teacher. You get attached to your kids, and they get attached to you, and they were fighting new teachers and fighting themselves because they're very stubborn middle school kids. I'm sure or you were there.
We've all been there.
Yes, and they were so excited. They screamed and all this. That was my one time to be like, you can act crazy for a second, and then we're going to bring it back. And they just had the best time, and they were so proud of themselves to bring that home for the first time in, I think, 11 years. It was a sweepstakes for choir at our campus.
Extraordinary. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
And so you and I talked a little bit about what makes a difference with students. What do you think made a difference this year about the teacher and about what you believed in with them?
I think for me, I just had to show them that it didn't matter how hard they pushed, that I wasn't going to let them, get away with things or scare me out of being their teacher, because that can happen. Sometimes you come into these schools, and my school's a little rougher, and those kids, they're strong. They have strong personalities and strong will, but you have to go in there and be bigger and stronger than they are at it and show them that you're on their side. And I think that was the big thing, was just when they finally trusted me that I was on their side. And, I love to hear them say, like, oh, Miss Rodriguez, she's kind of mean, but she's really good. She's really good. She's just, don't make her upset. Like, and they're not afraid of me, but they know that my standard of excellence for them will not waver. It can't.
Did you ever imagine that happening to you? I mean, did you put yourself in Diane Brumley's place all of a sudden? And
No, I don't think anyone could ever fill those shoes, and she wears fabulous shoes. But I never imagined myself as this kind of educator, but I love that it wasn't anything like what I envisioned for myself, and I think that's the best part of it, is the surprise, and that I'm here, and I think about it sometimes, I'm like, that is so weird that I teach kids, like I teach young people to be people and singers, and it's still strange every day.
It is a wonderful evolution that we all go through as teachers. It never ends.
Yes.
It does not if we're good. It continues. Okay, so you have now crossed that membrane over into leaving home, and you're now away from home. You're in Fort Bend ISD, and you've now taken a program that was dormant and brought it back to life, and now excelling. Kids trust you. They love you. Afraid of you a little bit, but So as you go back and you come back to Brownsville and you think about what made a difference for you in your family, what about your mom and dad? What role did they play in all of this?
They were just so supportive of the person I was and the things I wanted to do. And my mom, no matter what, Mika, I believe in you. And my dad, I think he's a little more of the skeptical person, which I'm that way, and he just, when I said, I'm going to go to school for music, he said, are you sure? What's your plan? Why? I said, well, I'm going to be an educator. This is what I want to do. And he said, okay, I support you, because I had a plan of what I wanted. And so they've always been just fantastically supportive people. They still, until I moved, they were going to my concerts at my work, things like that. And I'm just so lucky to have supportive parents.
Are either of them in music or play instruments or sing?
My parents were more athletically inclined. My dad still bike rides, every week. And my mom as well. She was more athletic and those things. And my brother and I were music. That's just what we did. I'm not athletic. It's not my thing.
And your dad's job right now in Brownsville is what?
He is the chief of police.
Chief of police. So be careful with this choir director, because she's got connections where it counts. And your mom was ever a teacher, or
no? She worked for the county for a long time. She's actually retired now.
Yeah. Well, they're gonna follow you to state next time you go, I have a feeling, or to Fort Bend to watch your performances. So now you get a moment with our students. You get to pretend they're sitting right here in front of you, and they're wondering, did I make the right decision going to UTRGV? Is music what I should have done? Are there jobs for people like me? Why don't you talk to our students just a little bit and tell them what you think?
I think if you have a passion for what you're doing, there's no way it can be a mistake. And there are jobs, and Texas is the place to be for music education. It really is. Education in general, Texas is a great place to be an educator. I think it's very supportive of that. And if you are doing what you love, then you have made a good decision. The thing is, I'd say, is don't be afraid of doing things your way or finding success that works for you. Don't doubt what you bring to the table, even if it's not something other people understand. Ask for help. Always ask. Don't be too proud to ask for help, because that will hinder your success. Know that your success will be your students' success. They always say teams win and coaches lose. So if they're successful, you are too. And at the end of the day, a job is just a job. Find one that fits you. And remember to be a person. Self-care is so important, especially as an educator, because you are caring for these kids. You're not just their choir director, band director, their coach. You are their counselor. Sometimes their surrogate parent, sometimes the only people they have. And you need to remember that you also need to be taken care of. And that doesn't make you selfish. It just makes you mentally healthy.
It has been such a pleasure to get to know you and to meet you again. Thank you for the commencement songs that you sang for us when you were a student here at UT Brownsville. Those are very special moments, and I always kind of sit in amazement to hear our singers, because it takes such courage to sing in front of thousands of people on their very special day. So muchísimas gracias for all of that. And thank you for taking time during your spring break at home to allow us to interview you and to get to know your story and inspire others, as I'm sure you were inspired yourself. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you for
Hasta
having
pronto.
me.
Thank you for tuning in to Next Generation, a program highlighting the next generation of leaders in the Rio Grande Valley and beyond.